I am a writer who doesn't read, doesn't like to read. I am more of a storyteller. So I will share with you more the story of this book, which is dedicated to my father, who is originally from Jaffa. The book before this one was called Damascus, which was dedicated to my mother. And these two cities, both Jaffa and Damascus, played a very important role in my life, being a daughter of a refugee who grew up in Jordan, away from Palestine. And I only made it to Palestine in 1981 with a permit from the Israelis that allowed me to come in for 30 days, 1 month. And now it has been almost 40 years. I'm still here. The story of this book, Jaffa, is a love story, actually, and it's based on a true story. It's a love story between two young people before 1948, whom I met in their 80s and 90s, and I sort of interviewed them to know what happened to their life before 1948, before the creation of the State of Israel, and after. And the book is divided into two parts. The first part shows what Jaffa was before the creation of Israel. And the second part talks about Jaffa and what happened to it as a result of the creation of Israel. Now, the book, I meant it to be about my father, but unfortunately it did not happen. I will share with you the story that is very meaningful to me. When I grew up in Jordan, I was like maybe 15, 16. When my father got a permit to go and visit, he could come to the occupied territories and Israel to visit. So the first thing he did is to go and look for his house in Jaffa. And sure enough, he found the house. He went into the courtyard, up the staircase, and knocked at the door. Stood there for a second, and then an Israeli woman opens the door for him. So he introduces himself. He says, I am Muhammad Amiry. This house is mine. I'm here to visit the house, and if possible, to take my mother's photo that we left behind. The Israeli woman gets very nervous, slaps the door in his face, and tells him, if you don't go away right away, I'm going to call the police. So my father said, why call the police? I am here just to visit the house, and as I told you. So she slapped the door, and my father stood behind, worried that the police may appear. Eventually, he made it back to Amman. Of course, we kids were very excited that Dad has been to Palestine, to Jaffa, to the city where he always talked about. And to our biggest surprise, at least for me, it was the first time ever I see my father cry. And that left a very big impact on me. And ever since then, I wanted to go back to the house and write the story. But actually, to tell you the truth, I never had the courage, or I never collected my emotions to face an Israeli family living in my my father's house. So I lived in Ramallah since 81, and Jaffa is only 40 minutes away from here. It wasn't until 2018, which is almost maybe 35, 80, 30 some years, that I was ready to go to find my family house and write a story. But my biggest surprise is I went there and I could not locate the house. I didn't know where the hell I was, and I never felt so stranger like that day. So I decided to quit this project. Coming back, the driver told me, would you like to meet my aunt, Shams? And he started telling me the story of Shams. I was very curious, so I ended up going back to Jaffa the next day. He came and took me, and I went there to meet almost an 85, 86-year old woman who told me her love story when she was 13. And even though I think I knew a lot about Palestine, but I never really realized what it meant 1948 for the people who left. I knew for the people who left what it meant, but I never knew what it meant for the people who stayed behind. Anyway, through the love story of Shams and Subhi, who was a mechanic in Jaffa, a 15-year-old, a very good mechanic, we see the city through the eyes of this young boy who was 15. And my father, when he left Jaffa, he was 17. So for me, it was almost like a father telling the story. And for me, it was amazing because when I wrote the story of 1948, I always felt, and now more so after Gaza, that if we don't really understand what happened in 1948 to the Palestinians, it will be impossible to understand what's going on in Gaza today. So for me, the book deals with the biggest Israeli lie, which is that they had come to a place with no people for a people with no land. Jaffa, 1947-48, where the story happens, was one of the biggest cities in Palestine. It had almost 120,000 people, and the economy was very nourishing, especially with the famous oranges, Jaffa oranges. So it was for me extremely important to reconstruct Jaffa through the eyes of Subhi, but also through the eyes of reading many references and books. Sorry?
It's okay, Suad. That's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So the first part, we see a very vivacious city, a city that has like 7, 8 newspapers every day, a city that has almost 8 cinemas, a city that had a cultural Mawsam, which is a Rubin festival. It's an annual festival that happens close to Jaffa. That was attended by 50,000 people. It was the biggest cultural event. Even today, we don't have that in Palestine or in the Arab world. It's a festival where Kulthum and Abdul Wahab and many artists arrive to. So for me, it was extremely important, even for myself, to rebuild that city the way my father and my aunts used to talk about it. But also, like all my books, I am more interested in everyday life and non-heroes, everyday people, like Subhi, who was a mechanic, and Shams, who was from a village. And it was important for me to talk to people from Jaffa and saw the different social classes, the difference between cities and villages, because Subhi was from Jaffa, while she was from a village, so there was this tension of would he be able to marry a peasant? But most important for me was to really show the openness of that city. It's a Mediterranean city that had different ethnic groups and religious groups, obviously. You know, it had Christians, it had Muslims, it has Jews, it has Greeks, Italians, and Jaffa was the place where people came to work because of the oranges. And so people from Beirut, from Lebanon, Syria. So it was extremely cosmopolitan city. And in 1948, Jaffa was supposed to be part of partition plan, part of the Arab partition plan, part of the Arab state, as it were. Under the British rule, when the British were still there, the Israelis made sure that they will evacuate the city before May 15th, when the UN declared Israel as a state. So People were thrown out by force in April 26, 25, 27. It was bombarded and people were thrown out of their homes. Now, it was difficult for us to imagine that, but now, after we have seen Gaza, we can easily, unfortunately, imagine, because Israel not only destroyed Jaffa or part of Jaffa, it destroyed many villages, like 420 villages. Now, when I wrote this book, I was really hoping that it will be the end of the trauma of Palestine. Never I realized that a place like Gaza will suffer even more.